Hey. Time for another Out of This World story from rSpace. Some people can't resist blowing up a perfectly peaceful life. Today on rSpace, connecting dots that were never supposed to exist in the first place. Wife of 32 years cheated with the neighbor. I divorced her, destroyed and exposed them to the town. I, 61 male, have been married to my wife, Linda, 57 female, for 32 years. We have 4 kids and 3 grandchildren. All are grown up and living on their own. They visit us during holidays or when they need a weekend break from the noise of the city. We live on a farm by the nature, away from the crowd. 10 years ago, when our youngest left for college, we decided to sell our family home in the suburbs and move to a remote town, somewhere quiet, away from traffic and hustle. We bought a big farm, 40 acres of land, a small farmhouse in the middle, and endless fields around. This was the kind of retirement life we had always dreamed of. The first few months were strange. I grew up on a farm until I was 10, so it was easier for me to adapt, but Linda has never lived in a small town. She wasn't used to hearing crickets at night or roosters at dawn. Sometimes she'd say life had gotten monotonous. Same sky, same dirt road, same chores. On some days, she was happy to be in nature, away from the pollution and noise. I thought it was normal that she just missed the liveliness of city life. Eventually, we settled into a rhythm. She seemed to enjoy it. Mornings started with coffee on the porch. I'd tend to the crops, fix the fences, check on the livestock. She handled the kitchen garden, took care of the chickens, and helped with the community bake sales. She loved cooking. Always said it was her therapy. She did community work at the church. We'd eat lunch together around noon, take a short nap, and then spend the evening sitting on the porch swing. It was slow and uneventful, but peaceful. A year ago, a new couple moved into the property north of ours. Their house had been empty for years. The old woman who lived there had passed away, and it took a while before someone finally bought it. The newcomers were younger than us, maybe early 50s. The guy, Mark, worked remotely, maybe in some company. His wife homeschooled their teenage son. He was a child with special needs. We met them a few weeks after they moved in. Nice people, polite, quiet. Linda got along with them instantly. Sometimes she went over to teach their son piano. Every few days, I'd see her leaning over the fence, chatting with Mark or his wife. Sometimes handing over a basket of eggs or a jar of pickles. Normally, neighborly stuff. I don't think much of it. Around here, neighbors help neighbors. That's how it works. But over the months, I noticed small shifts in her. She started dressing up. Not anything inappropriate, but she spent extra time in front of the mirror before heading out to the garden or teaching piano. Her mood shifted. She was lighter, smiled more, hummed while cooking, like she'd found joy again. Then I started to notice when she was the happiest. Always on weekends, especially Saturday evenings through Sunday mornings. She'd say it was because of church that she loved seeing people and catching up. I didn't question it. After 3 decades of marriage, you stop interrogating. One Saturday morning, I was halfway through plowing the field when I noticed a car pulling out of the neighbor's driveway. Mark's wife was heading towards the city with her son in the passenger seat. He waved at me and I waved back. I slowed the tractor, watched as they turned onto the main road. It wasn't unusual for them to leave on the weekends, but this time it hit differently. I remember every Saturday they went to the city in the morning and came back late in the evening. I believe she took him to some therapy session. I leaned back and started thinking that every Saturday she was gone, and somehow Linda's best moods always coincided with those days. My mind wasn't in the field anymore. It started adding things up. I brushed it off for the first few times. Then my mind started connecting dots. When I came back in the afternoon, Linda was all happy and light. I started noticing her more. For the whole week, every time I looked toward the northern fence, I'd see her there, talking to Mark. Sometimes she'd help him with something, holding a ladder, carrying tools, whatever excuse kept her there longer. He was about 10 years younger than me, fit, easygoing, charming in the same small town way. I hated myself for thinking it, but I could see the appeal. I started noticing patterns. She'd bake on Fridays in the community, but those casseroles or pies would end up in Mark's hands. Once I saw her carrying something across the field, and when she came back, she had that soft, secretive smile. I wanted to be wrong. Next Saturday, again, I was on the farthest side of our property. From there I could see the neighbor's house to the north, about half a mile away. I noticed the car leaving again, her kid in the back seat. I turned off the tractor and just sat there for a long time. I couldn't focus. I replayed every instance. I told myself I was being paranoid. Why would she trade off her 32 years of marriage for something just so stupid? but that gnawing feeling pestered me. Around 11, I finally decided to head back. Instead of taking the main dirt path where my car and tractor were parked, I took the southern trail. It's rougher, longer, but it keeps you out of sight from the northern property. I didn't want anyone to see me heading home early. I don't even know why. When I reached the house, I entered through the back door quietly. Her car was still parked outside. Inside, everything looked normal. I called out her name twice, but there was no answer. I went upstairs. The door to our bedroom was open. The bathroom was empty. I walked over to the window facing the northern fence, pulled down the curtain just enough to see through the slit. There was nothing. It didn't even cross my mind where she went. I was so sure that she was with him. Then, after a few minutes, I saw Mark leaning by his window, looking out towards my tractor in the field. It looked like he was checking if I was still out there. Then he shut the curtain and disappeared from sight. I waited there for I don't know how long, maybe an hour. Then I saw her sneaking out from the side of his house, half running, her hair slightly messy, her clothes not quite in order. She glanced around once, then hurried her way toward our house. A few minutes later, I heard her footsteps on the stairs. When she saw me standing by the window, she froze mid-step. Her face turned pale and stammered, "You're home already? I thought you were working out in the south field." I didn't move, didn't speak, just looked at her. She tried to smile and act normal. "I made a casserole this morning, took some over for the boy. You know, he loves my food." I calmly responded, "The boy or his father?" She blinked. "What?" I turned fully toward her. "The boy is away. I saw them drive off to the city hours ago." She stood there in silence, looking for words, and then she whispered, barely audible, "We were just talking, nothing else." I didn't answer, walked past her, climbed down the stairs, through the kitchen, and stormed out the door. I got into my truck and drove off. I don't even remember taking the turns, but somehow ended up back in town in front of the old bar. It's tucked in a small alley behind the main street. Though the staff had changed, the place is still the same. I used to come here when life got overwhelming. I'd sit at the same corner booth, nurse a drink, and think until I felt normal again. So that's what I did now. I ordered a whiskey, one after another, talked to no one, only stared at the ring mark my glass left on the table, watching it fade each time I lifted the drink. My mind kept looping the moment she was sneaking out of the neighbor's house. Surprisingly, there was no anger, only heaviness in the chest. I left the place around midnight. Didn't want to go home, so I found a cheap motel a few blocks away and crashed. Next morning, I drove back home. She was sitting at the kitchen table with swollen red eyes. The minute she saw me, she stood up, like she didn't know whether to run to me or hide. I walked right past her without saying a word. While I took a shower, she made me breakfast, but I didn't touch any of it. I grabbed my cap and headed for the door. She whispered something behind me, maybe asking me to talk. I didn't care to catch. She didn't go to church that Sunday. I spent the whole day out in the field, pretending to work, but really just thinking about all those years, the kids, the house, the vows. It's been a week now, and the situation is still the same. The days somehow crawl, but the nights are worse. I've been cooking my own food, doing the dishes and sleeping in the garage. Sometimes when I do chores, she tries to make small talk, but I don't respond. I see the panic in her eyes. She doesn't go near that side of the property anymore. Doesn't talk to him. Mark keeps his distance too, but his wife still waves sometimes. Clearly she knows nothing. Linda would shift in her chair and look down whenever it happened. She couldn't even wave back. Sometimes I find Mark playing with his son on their lawn and his wife bringing them snacks. They looked so perfect and happy family from the outside. But I only knew the truth. Sometimes I want to just barge in and tell the truth to this woman, but also get scared to shatter her life. She's already struggling a lot raising her special child. This would break her down. Today's Saturday again. I saw her car pull out, her son waving from the passenger seat, like always. Since then, Linda's been restless, walking around the field, pretending to check on the chickens or the plants. But I know she's trying to get noticed by me. Maybe she wants me to see her out there, just so she's not with him this time. I don't care anymore. I've already made my decision and planning my exit. If folks here are interested, I'll update else. This is the end. After 32 years, you're supposed to be able to relax around someone. You're not supposed to have to connect dots. You're not being dramatic. You're not overreacting. You saw what you saw, and she knows exactly what she was doing. You gave 32 years of commitment, stability, and loyalty. You deserve the same in return. If she wanted a different life, she had a lifetime to communicate that. Instead, She created one behind your back. Update 1. It's been a month since that Saturday. It's been silent between us. We moved around each other like ghosts. Sometimes she looked at me like she wants to say something but doesn't. Maybe she was just waiting for me to cool down. Meanwhile, I was talking to my lawyer and carefully getting everything ready. Technically, the farm was mine. I'd bought the land years ago, paid for the build and the improvements, signed the mortgage, all under my name. Linda had stood next to me at the closing, but her name wasn't in the deed. She never had a full-time job. She was either raising the kids or had a part-time job, doing social and church works. It was I who built everything. That was how our marriage had been structured. She raised the children and kept the home. I earned and managed the money. My lawyer explained the options: fighting in court and risk months of ugly scrutiny, or arrange a clean settlement that would give Linda enough to live on while letting me walk away with the things I needed. It wasn't an easy call. He told me about shared property law and how courts look at contributions, not just names on deeds. He also reminded me about cost, time, stress, the chance that one of our kids would be pulled into the mess. I hadn't wanted them to be involved. I still didn't. I told him that I wanted her to keep the house. She needed the security for giving her everything and raising the kids. But the farm, the land beyond the fenced garden, the tractors, the equipment, I want that liquidated. We worked through the details over the next 10 days. I updated the will, changed the nominee of all my accounts, making sure things were tidy. Should anything happen to me, I had the property appraised. It was a strange business walking the fields with the assessor, the farmhouse and its lawn, that small apple orchard, the chicken coop, the walnut stand along the driveway. All of that was assessed for market value. The number he gave me was more than I thought. I listed the tractor, set a fair asking price for the mower and implements, canceled the subscription services in my name, set up the account to move the sale proceeds into, prepared the paperwork that would legally transfer the house contents and the license address to her. I had already moved most of my stuff into the garage, easier to execute my plan from there. I felt she was noticing but didn't care to ask. The lawyer drafted the documents and we revised them between calls. The agreement was fair. Within 2 weeks, the paper was ready and he waited for my nod. On Saturday, a local farmer came to look at my tractor. He gave me a fair offer. We closed the deal. I gave him the keys and he said he would come on Monday to ship it away. I informed my lawyer about the deal. On Sunday morning, after she left for church, I loaded the truck with the packed boxes. I left my keys on the table and drove off. But before I left, I wrote a note to Mark's wife. The woman across your house is with your husband on Saturdays when you go to the city. I had made at least 100 copies of it and slipped it on their lawn. The April air did its job and the paper spread across their house. It broke my heart to shatter her perfect world, but I had to. Can't let her live in the dark. After crossing the town, I parked my truck at the roadside and FaceTimed my children. 3 of them picked up. It wasn't unusual. I often called them on Sunday mornings, but this time it was different. They asked me about their mom and why I was calling from a roadside. I informed them I was leaving their mother because she broke the marriage vows. They were adults and understood what I was talking about. The elder one gathered the courage to ask, "Are you sure, Dad? Could there be any misunderstanding?" I told him I saw her coming out of his house when his wife was away. I could hear their worry in their silence. The questions about who would take care of Mom, the fear that came from years of seeing us together. I informed them that I've arranged things. The lawyer will be in touch this afternoon and she will have enough to be comfortable for the rest of her life. They asked her where I was going. I told them not to worry. I'm not going to answer questions about where I'm going right now. I need some time. Tears came on the line. My elder one offered to have me in. My second boy offered to pick me up. I assured them I would be safe and that I had everything sorted out. I gave them my lawyer's number if they needed anything from me, and I would call them back. My existing number would be unavailable. I told them I wasn't cutting them out of, and once I was ready, I'll visit them. I hung up, pulled out the old SIM, and inserted a new one. I had already changed the contact number and address in all my bank accounts and all the official places. I was already 100 miles away when my lawyer called in the evening after finishing the task of briefing Linda. Said he'd reached the house in the afternoon. She looked startled when she saw him. She was just back from her church and was red with surprises along the way. She saw the truck was gone and my keys on the table. My lawyer started with the division of assets. He explained that the farmland and machinery was being sold. The proceeds would be used to clear existing dues and be handled according to the agreement. Then he handed her the ownership papers for the house, along with the garden, pool, and everything inside the fenced boundary. Her name was now on the deed. She just stared at the papers and asked, "Where is he? Has he really left?" He told her yes, that I'd left earlier in the morning, and that I didn't want to be contacted. She broke down on hearing this. She said she didn't think I'd actually leave. She thought I just needed space, that after a few days I'd calm down and we'd talk. "He didn't even give me a chance. I made a stupid mistake. One mistake in 32 years, and he threw it all away." He said his job was only to deliver the information and ensure she understood the legalities. She told him that when she was driving back from church, she saw the notes flying all over the fence lines, even near the main street. Some were crushed under tires. She said, "It's everywhere. The whole town knows by now. I saw people picking them up, and his wife's been screaming all morning. You can hear her from our porch." She was crying. She said she'd made a mess she couldn't clean up. "I know I crossed the line. It wasn't love. It wasn't even an affair. It was boredom. Stupid, meaningless boredom. I hated how quiet life had become. Every day was the same. Those few moments with him gave me a glimpse of my former self. That's all it was. I didn't want to ruin anything." She asked my lawyer for my details again, and when he refused, she got angry. "He can just leave me like this? We built this life together. I stood by him through everything. I left my social life, my work, my city for him, and now he's gone without a word, abandoning me in this stupid place." She said she felt blindsided and betrayed. She thought giving me space was the right thing to do, that I'd cool off and come around. "I had no idea he was planning." She said she couldn't stay here anymore anyway. "Every face in town knows now. They'll whisper while I pass. I can't live here." She told him she'd already tried calling the kids, but they weren't answering. Later, when one finally picked up, she realized they already knew. She said it felt like the world had turned her back on her all at once. "He made me look like a mad mother, like I never cared for them or for him. I did. My whole life was for them." My lawyer left shortly after that. She didn't walk him to the door, didn't even look up when he said goodbye, just kept staring out the window toward the field where I worked. He said he could still hear shouting faintly from Mark's house. She called my lawyer again the next day, asking about me. Apparently, the note has done its job a bit too well. The whole town had caught wind of what had happened. People had seen the notes scattered across the road, fluttering through yards, caught in fences. No one needed names. They all knew which two houses the note pointed to. There weren't that many women across the house, in a neighborhood with only 6 families on the stretch. The lawyer said when he stopped by the local office to drop off documents, he overheard 2 clerks talking about how even the good ones fall. One of them told him that Mark's wife kicked him out. They told him that some said Linda had packed and left. Some said both couples were divorcing. I listened to all this quietly on the phone, sitting in a rented cabin about 200 miles away. Linda has been calling him regularly, asking about my whereabouts. She hadn't left the house since Sunday. The blinds were drawn most of the time. She stopped answering calls from the church group, from friends. Apparently the fight next door had been ugly. Mark's wife had thrown him out for 2 nights. No one knew what she'd do next, but one thing was sure that everyone knew now. He hesitated before saying, "She's not taking it well, you know. She said she wants to sell the house. Said she can't stay where everyone knows." I said, "That's her choice." 2 days later, my eldest daughter called the lawyer. She'd spoken to Linda, said her mother sounded broken, crying, apologizing, saying she didn't understand how it all got this far. She wanted to know where I was, said maybe she could convince me to come back, to at least talk. I told the lawyer to thank her and tell her I was fine, that I'd call her when I was ready, but I didn't. Not yet. As per the latest talk with my lawyer, Linda has listed the house for sale quietly. No public listing yet, but word got around soon enough. She told him she was thinking of moving back to the city, closer to one of the kids, maybe find some part-time work. She sounded tired and defeated. I know people say revenge feels good, but it doesn't. It just feels quiet afterward. Still, there was a certain peace in knowing that the truth was out, that she couldn't hide behind, "It was just a mistake," anymore. She didn't believe you had it in you. That's why she's shocked. That's why she's calling your lawyer. That's why she's saying things like, "I didn't think he'd actually leave." Her sudden remorse isn't about love, it's about impact. She's facing the social consequences, the personal humiliation, the reality of what she blew up. It's telling that she's calling it one mistake. People say that when they don't want to face the length, pattern, or intentionality of their actions? Sneaking out of a neighbor's house multiple Saturdays, lying about where she was, dressing up, feeding a man's ego with casseroles and thyme. None of that is a mistake. What do you think? Thank you for joining us today on rSpace. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. See you next time.